they had this big sit down, everybody get together meeting where 30 terms were outlined and agreed to, which were that they wouldn't enter her trailer while she was naked, like shit that makes the other person sound crazy, which it did. Can't add any more sex scenes. Can't do improvised kissing, can't make comments about her body weight, can't talk about porn addiction anymore, can't show naked videos of your wife giving birth anymore, in reference to James Heath, another co-host from the Man Enough podcast. Justin's team basically goes, not only does that agreement not exist, which means we couldn't have possibly agreed to it, none of the shit that's in this and framed as past tense fucking happened.
It does also seem like, and again, I've only looked at this extremely high level. It seems like his defense is this was a series of coincidences. You know what I'm saying? Like that
is also a fair point. That is also a fair point.
It seems like he's like
in her defense, yeah.
It's like everything that she brings up, it was a coincidence. It was a coincidence. It was a misunderstanding. It was a misunderstanding. He introduces different stuff from the countersuit perspective, but everything that he's trying to refute is like,
it's a red flag.
Yeah, that is what it is. They gonna call me Capitalist Eddie after this shit. Sorry folks, but that's where I'm at. All right. Well, welcome everybody to Waving the Red Flag. Oh, that's crazy! They were waving the red flag too. This podcast is brought to you by the People's Republic of China. I'm your boy Eddie. This is Josh. This is Alvin. We are majorly owned by the Chinese government. Welcome to the podcast. You know what I'm saying? That's why the flag's red. Yeah. Okay. Let's get into the baldoni shit. Because I thought that this was a very interesting, like, second chapter after we talked about, like, because it's very hard to fucking parse this shit out. Where you're like, okay, cool, misogyny exists, and most people don't lie in these situations, and power dynamics exist, but people do lie a little bit of the time, and you don't know which thing is true and what's not, or like there's a thing that's a fact, but it can be presented without context in a way that completely changes the way something comes across. So like one of the things that stuck out to me in Justin's countersuit, which he's suing the New York Times or whichever article, like whichever newspaper posted the article about the shit with Blake, saying that they left out key evidence. One of them was that one of his PR agents said something like, oh no, he said to one of his PR agents, thanks for doing that. As in, like, thanks for planting this article about Blake Lively. But what they left out was an upside down smiley face emoji at the end of the text, which is meant to indicate irony. Like, oh, we're in the process of doing a PR campaign. We're not even posting these articles because Blake's reputation is so fucked up anyway. That's what that text was meant to do. But instead, it's reframed as a part of a smear campaign. There's other shit that's harder to kind of tear down, but the he said, she said of this is very interesting to me.
I think that in this particular case, the power dynamic aspect is especially poignant because in terms of, I would say, the Hollywood standing of it, she is the more powerful person.
I didn't think that until his suit came back out. And then I was like, because before I'm thinking, Blake Lively, ain't nobody checking for Blake Lively. I ain't seen her in fucking anything. She's Ryan Gosling's wife. And then I'm thinking, he's the producer and the director. But then they started talking about the power that she had with Ryan Gosling and how he's
creative control and like how she was basically,
she did another edit of it, like that kind of shit. And I'm like, okay, this might not be the situation that I thought it was in terms of power. So yeah, that really gave me a lot of pause because I'm like, yeah, Justin Baldoni is basically an independent creator. He's not up there. He's not an A-list person. He don't have billions behind him. He's a small independent film kind of like producer, and is my understanding. Correct me if I'm wrong, anybody in the comments. Whereas Blake Lively with the Ryan what's the motherfucker's name? Reynolds. With the Deadpool boost. I'm like, okay, she was, because they're saying his countersuit is saying that she and Ryan together basically took his movie over, steamrolled him, and were like, oh, we want to re-edit this movie, we want to change the fucking script. They're like, and I'm like, so then some of the stuff that is in the original suit, which is kind of framing him as this like tyrannical director, are like, he again, if what he's saying is true, which it might not be, I don't know, is coming across as like, well, this is just a director who is trying to direct their movie, and then a performer who came in after the fact is trying to recut their shit, and they're going, what the fuck are we doing? And the studio, Sony, which is obviously way more powerful than Wayfarer Studios, is steamrolling that as well and backing the more powerful star. So I'm like, yeah, the power dynamic shit is I'm not gonna say I'm 100% flip, but it's a whole different story than what I initially thought when I think about the power thing.
And so my initial thing, even reading the article, is if she was such a problem, why wouldn't he have come out? Why is it reactive and not proactive? But I think that the reactive nature of it might be because, again, within that sphere, she is the more powerful person, potentially, right? And then I'm also at the point where you have to consider that more powerful women still get sexually harassed all the time. Like that's not 100%. That's not uncommon at all.
That's
so
the
I think
intersectionality.
But my whole thing is that all of it just seems very he said, she said. And if it becomes a he said, she said kind of situation, then my heart of hearts is still very much to believe the woman victim. And I know people give me all kinds of shit about that, but again, as I cite all the time, I have a study. Most people that have this conversation, even if it's a flawed study, even if it's a study that doesn't hold true, most people have anecdotes, and we do have study on this. So I still tend to lean towards her, but I do think that at best, even what she has seems to be circumstantial.
Yeah, I mean, look, some of my pushback around the study stuff, though I think I kind of arrived at the same conclusion as you, so there's more of an aside, is that sometimes a study, the weakness of studies sometimes is about whether or not they are actually applicable to a situation. So I think sometimes the argument that you make, which often is fair, which is I have a study, you have a feeling, is that sometimes a study, in my view, is not stronger than a feeling because a study is like limited and maybe not even applicable to the situation, whereas a feeling oftentimes is based on some lived experience. And so when gauging those up against one another, I'm not always on the study, therefore is the stronger evidence. In some situations it can be, maybe even most, but it requires a specific conversation about, does this study apply to this thing about this situation? Because we know for a fact that, like the soft sciences, psychology, for instance, a whole bunch of the study information just tramples all over like the lived experience of people. And you go back and look at the methodology and go like, a racist, sexist society creates racist, sexist science. And there's limitations to that can ignore and turn groups of people to historical,
It's not even that. Like, I'll take it a step further. Like when you start getting into anything that deals with people, like you're dealing with probabilistic science, right? There's no outside of things that deal with the natural world and how our bodies as people interact with the natural world. There's no deterministic science, right? Like economics is not a deterministic science. Psychology is not a deterministic science. Psychology is getting better. Psychology is getting better because you have the aspects of neuroscience, but neuroscience is, I don't know if people know this either, but it's very much in its infancy. We know very little about the brain still. So when you're dealing with those kind of situations, I do understand that you have to approach them as the probabilistic sciences that they are. I would still, and I'm not saying I think that what you're saying is completely off base, but I would just say, me personally, I would still rely on the probabilistic nature of a study versus any one person's individual feeling based on anecdotal stuff. Because again, when you get into those situations, then you start talking about the more post-processual kind of thought of our internal biases of how we interpret those things, which I think add a different level of lens to how we even view those kind of things, based on how we're all impacted by media messages and all those kind of things. But again, based on the fact that it is probabilistic, I think that you have something to stand on with your thought on how we do that. But getting back to this specifically, and how we bring that all home. Have you read the lawsuit? Because
which one? His lawsuit.
Yeah.
So I did a skim of it. I put it in a notebook LM and then listened to kind of that run through of several situations. And so I've got like a high level of a couple of specific examples that to me gave me a little bit of pause. And I wouldn't say I think I lean in the direction of where you're saying, but not as much, because I think that there are in terms of just being intersectional, power matters. Like, you know what I mean? Gender matters as well. Power also matters. So if
Especially
I'm
if you
going,
have
who do
enough
I
power.
believe?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if I in that situation, and look, the other thing that I'm looking at is how are people behaving it? Like Liz Plank leaving Justin's podcast, that to me was very damning. It's not 100%, but that was very damning to me because it wasn't temporary. It wasn't, hey, let me step back while this is sorted out. It was, hey, believe woman, I'm off the podcast forever. And I'm like, whew, that's a very big. But I understand from the back end, there's a lot of conversations that go into those kind of situations where people are talking to their lawyers and their agents and trying to figure out what looks crazy. And I just got to step back before it even gets to a situation like that. But still very damning.
And aren't they rep by the same?
Yeah.
Aren't they rep by the same talent agency? Did I read that or did I misread that?
Liz and Justin Baldoni, maybe I don't know. Yeah, but I know that Justin did get dropped. I think from his talent agency amid this stuff. Yeah. So one of the things, or so a few of the things that are listed in here is that he's not really he's not suing Blake. He's suing the New York Times for defamation. I don't know what his other options would be if he were just fully kind of innocent, but the framing is that he's basically saying I was steamrolled and the power dynamics were not in my favor in terms of the production of this film itself. And that's a combination of both Sony and Blake and Ryan Reynolds. But two, that the claims of sexual harassment that are being put forward in Blake's suit, that a lot of them are, depending on which, so because he addresses them in a few different ways, which are like misunderstandings, blown out of proportion, or straight up didn't happen. So one of the things, which was a big one that everyone kind of was quoting a lot, which is that they had this big sit down, everybody get together meeting where 30 terms were outlined and agreed to, which were that they wouldn't enter her trailer while she was naked, like shit that makes the other person sound crazy, which it did. Like, you can't do this again, you can't do this again, you can't do this again. And Justice team is basically saying, one, and sorry, I'll list what those things were. Can't enter her trailer while she's breastfeeding, can't add any more sex scenes, can't do improvised kissing, can't make comments about her body weight, can't talk about porn addiction anymore, can't show naked videos of your wife giving birth anymore, in reference to James Heath, another co-host from the Man Enough podcast. And Justin's team basically goes, we never agreed to any such like stipulations because that meeting never happened. That article, that like list doesn't fucking exist. None of that happened. And the framing of no more of this, no more of that, no more of that implies that each of those things already happened, and
Yes.
perhaps multiple times, to where we have to stop harassing you. This is the argument that they're making. I don't know what the truth is. The argument they're making is not only does that agreement not exist, which means we couldn't have possibly agreed to it, none of the shit that's in this and framed as past tense fucking happened. So that's, I mean, to be fair, who's gonna say, yeah, no, I did that shit. But I feel like a situation like that is easy to prove. So I'm curious to see what happens next, because if there was a meeting where everybody agreed to 30 terms, there's going to be evidence of that one way or the other. That I don't think that'll be left to he say, she say.
Yeah, I agree. That may be a bit of a smoking gun from this perspective. I just feel like I don't feel like we know enough for me to go against what the probability states is happening here.
I think that's a fair way of looking.
It all just seems
he say,
like
she say right
now. It all seems he said, she said, and in a he said, she said kind of situation, I'm going to believe
err in that direction.
Yeah, I'm going to err in what the. No,
how did you feel initially when this was like 2 news cycles ago and Blake was the people's enemy for like 2 months? How did you feel at that point? Did you feel like, hey, this feels like misogyny working in Justin Baldoni's favor temporarily?
That is 100%
what it felt like in that moment. Okay, interesting.
That is 100% how I felt.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, because
the whole story wasn't really on Black people's radar when it first dropped. So
I knew about her suit.
About it initially.
I didn't know too much about his countersuit. And this New York Times defamation case.
But did you know before she did the suit, when it first dropped, which was like 6 months ago when the movie was first coming out? That what you're referring to?
Even during like the press tour, like all that stuff that was happening in terms of like even before she said everything, but like people were just like hinting at like the tension of the situation.
Yeah.
Like I was fully aware of that. But a lot of that, from my perspective, just seemed, to your point, like the media rallying around
A
a
man.
man trying to silence a
Okay.
woman that
Fair
was
enough.
trying to stand up for herself. That's how I interpreted that situation.
Yeah, I wasn't sure because the thing for me, I don't lean as much that way as you because I'm kind of in Josh's camp of being like, it is possible for people of any gender to be dickheads in a situation. And
Very possible.
up until that point, there wasn't accusations of sexual harassment, which makes me lean more in your direction of people don't tend to lie about that. Before that, when it was just Blake versus Justin on who's a dickhead, I was like, Blake just seems like a dickhead. But then when she was like, no, this is in response to some other shit that was going on behind the scenes, then I'm a little bit more like, okay, this is maybe the fake male feminist was always on some bullshit kind of situation. So, but I guess that's kind of where I was gonna make another point about something.
Question.
Yeah.
How do y'all feel about Ryan Reynolds' possible involvement in this? Because in the stuff that I read, it wasn't even just like Blake. It was Blake and Ryan Reynolds. Like, do you think like they were, power couple, like, just steamrolling the whole entire project? Because like Ryan Reynolds is a, Hollywood darling. Like everyone loves Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah, they do. They really do.
I like
and
Ryan
he hasn't
Reynolds.
shown his face. I mean, he's very up until this point.
Yeah.
Like not Teflon, but like a squeaky clean kind of guy where it's like he's super edgy, but he's never controversial, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like and him and Blake Lively which is a very difficult to be the family friendly R-rated actor is actually a crazy fucking intersection of places because pretty much no one is at that. I would say that I'm trying to think who else that would be. Yeah, maybe. I was gonna say The Weeknd because I feel like
he won a Nickelodeon Kids Choice Award.
Exactly.
So,
where it's like he's the most grotesque but the reason is because they don't exist as a person. They exist only as a brand. So you can do whatever the fuck you want with them because their private lives are like non-existent. Will Smith probably would have been a similar kind of thing.
Clean, right?
Yeah, Will Smith would be more squeaky clean pre.
No, but I'm just saying, like, even what you know about Ryan. What you know about Ryan Reynolds is like private life is like I'm thinking about
presented,
I'm thinking about the speech where he's like he goes to work, he comes home, he goes to work and he runs home because he wants to be with his wife, he wants to be with his family, and that's like what you know about it. So it's like you're right, he exists as a brand and a family man, like a public facing brand and a family man. So I think
So when he makes a bunch of dick jokes or he says his wife is ugly in a way that's like, oh, they're joking together, nobody feels anything about it because that's just a brand. The man doesn't exist much. So that to me, that is a very compelling story. To Alvin's point, this is all he said. She said, I think that though there's a couple of things in what Justin says and in what Blake says that in a court of like a civil case can just be like, there's some smoking guns. Like there are documents that either will or will not exist. There are texts that either will or will not exist to prove some of this. But at least just the story of Ryan Reynolds coming in and steamrolling the shit seems to me like it'll be very easy to confirm this story or not. And it's a story that doesn't sound ridiculous to me at all.
Yeah, it could very much be. No, go ahead, Josh.
I was gonna say I don't think it doesn't sound ridiculous when it was implicating Ryan Reynolds as being like cohorts with Blake Lively and steamrolling the project, like being difficult to work with, and then like all this minutia, and then like basically like blocking and stopping certain things from happening. I just feel like if you were in their position and if you have not done anything immoral or unethical while you're at your job, trying to get things to see how you might think things should go within your vision, and you have a quiet power behind you, it's implied, your reputation precedes you, especially if you Blake Lively and your husband is Ryan Reynolds. I don't know who the fuck Blake Lively was. Like I might be able to recognize her in the face, but
I don't even know where she's from.
You know what I mean? So but I would just say
Gossip
like
Girl.
I never watched it.
No, me neither. I tried the first season.
That's not too diminished.
Oh, she was in the town with Jeremy Renner and them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I don't remember who she played.
And that's my own ignorance. I'm not trying to diminish this woman's career or any of her accomplishments.
No, she's low. She's a lower level actor. That's fair to say. That's fine.
And I'm not even.
That's even an insult. Justin is below that.
I mean, clearly, because I've never heard of him either. Mean, but either way, like they are both gainfully employed in a very difficult environment where it is in an environment where it is difficult to be employed in consistently, and then especially working on big projects. The lens of Baldoni, oh my god, like they did X, Y, and Z, but I'm not, like they were unjust to me. And while you have these allegations against you as a straight white man, I'm like, but I'm like, okay, well, everyone loves Ryan Reynolds. Like Ryan Reynolds has never gave any sign of being like problematic. And everyone like yo, I love working with Ryan Reynolds. Like he's a good dude. Like overall, like I mean, is decent of a human being as someone of that stature could be. And I'm just thinking from the stance of power dynamics. And I wouldn't be surprised if Blake and Ryan Reynolds might have utilized some certain power dynamics, but at the same time, it's just like, okay, well, if you feel like this thing should go a certain type of way. And then you say, hey, well, I feel like we should do like this thing this way, or I don't want to be picked up by this man. Matter of fact, that was another thing too, because that was like a whole thing of goddamn. There was
they took the whole scene out.
Baldoni was supposed to be like picking up Blake Lively, and I thought it was like super weird. It's like, yeah, no, because Baldoni was like, yeah, no, I did contact the goddamn trainer. I did ask about her weight because of shit.
That's weird.
Meniscus in my back.
That's weird because he got sciatica. That seems regular to me. But talk to me.
Exactly. But see, that's things that people don't think about when it comes. Like when you get into like a scandal and like normal shit that you might do and you might not think nothing of. Now this is being brought into court as
now looks crazy.
Public opinion. Yeah. Sorry.
No, because some of the things in it. Sorry, go ahead.
No, because it was just like, yo, oh no, well now you're fat shaming this person. Oh, why are you concerned about this woman's weight? Well, actually, no, like my back is a little fucked up, and I gotta pick this person up, and I'm just asking her trainer about her workout, which is kind of strange. Not going.
No, it's not though.
It's a little unless you have a personal relationship with that trainer. Because I could, but again, because I can see I can see I see your thoughts.
Yeah. I mean, look, it could be crazy a little bit, but to me, that mostly seems regular because
is the optics of it are crazy.
After the fact,
it's like,
but it's like
exactly.
Yes, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. The optics of it are crazy under this light and after the fact. That's all.
And I said it's on the initial live, and because I don't want to lean too far into like, especially because Baldoni is like we've never had him on this podcast, but like he's in that sphere of like other, so I don't want to be like glazing too hard to defend the shit. So I hope I'm kind of giving the nuance around this, but some of the stuff, even in the initial claim, I'm going like, okay, well, wait a second, we're saying it's crazy to go to ask to be in the trailer of one of the actors in your movie. That's kind of like it's required as part of doing the job. What are we talking about? Like that's somebody's on your team. You go, hey, can I go into your office? Now with the James Heath shit, there's context that's important, which is that like, hey, somebody said, I don't want you to come in because I'm like half undressed. Then that's fair. That's where it gets weird. And that one stuck out to me as a pretty fair condemnation. But the trainer thing, I'm going like, you're doing a job that has a physical component. Your boss on that creative project speaks to your trainer to ask about your progress. I think that like it could be a weird overstep because it's like if that trainer is not paid for by the I guess it depends. If that's your personal private trainer and they're reaching around private numbers to ask questions about that they really should be asking you as the performer, then that is weird. But if the trainer is somebody who was hired by the studio to train you and the director asks the person who's training you to do the job that they're asking you to do, that'd be like if the Russo brothers asked Chris Evans, like fucking choreography, martial arts instructor, hey, how's he progressing? That's literally what your job as the director is.
Yeah, it's like a head football coach asking the defensive line coach how the DN is playing. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like
Yeah, but I will say also,
it's more than regular. It's like literally the job.
I'm looking at what Blake Lively looks like.
Said, yeah, let's. Oh, okay.
How skinny? Like, how much weight does this woman need to lose? Because she is.
That's also a good point because Baldoni's pretty big, so I don't know what he. Yeah, that's a fair point.
Skinny as fuck. No, Dan. I
I mean,
mean,
he does have side
she
acting,
ain't,
but
I
that's a
mean,
good.
she
That's actually a good point.
ain't,
Because
ain't got no thighs. Ain't,
no,
that
wait,
ass ain't. I'm sorry,
don't do that. Don't do. Don't do. This is too close. It's too soon. It's too close to the events to.
I know.
28 Doja Cat, this bitch. Like,
It's not.
Fighting misogyny with misogyny.
right,
Like, let's
right.
do
That's what I
it.
was
Like,
saying.
The enemy of my enemy is
No,
my
that's
friend.
yeah. No, he canceled it out. He said Justin Baldoni is a misogynist because this bitch skinny as hell anyway.
yeah, like,
That's crazy. Um, that's wild, dog. This is an active investigation. But
It's
yeah,
just
that is a fair point because he's a pretty big dude as well. So I don't know.
because yeah, I mean, but I just feel like that is kind of like a weird thing to check in on. So that gives her more credit.
Okay,
Like,
yeah.
because I mean, she had to have felt like a strong way about this person to where like, nah, I don't even want him in my trailer. So there's clearly some things going on. Of course, some people are
Yeah, the
fucking
timeline makes a difference as well.
Oh,
Like if
yeah.
shit was already weird.
Yeah, and then some people are like hyper paranoid and then like make things up. And I'm not saying that this is what Blake did, but I'm just saying like in terms of the landscape of human beings, we see this shit all the time on social media. Everybody ain't exactly screwed the right way. So, but just to say that if she felt so strongly about not having this man in her vicinity, what did he do?
You think there must have? I mean, yeah, because if
There's
shit
a
broke
couple just
down,
like us, yeah, but
something must have caused the thing to break down. But
yeah,
to
that
me, it
was
felt
that
like
serious. Yeah. And him going to her trainer is like maybe an example of something weird.
honestly, I'm not.
yeah,
It
and it
could be
does.
without context. I'm not viewing it
It
that
does
way.
also seem like, and
myself.
again, I've only looked at this extremely high level. It seems like his defense is this was a series of coincidences. You know what I'm saying? Like
That is also a fair point. That is also a fair point.
It seems like he's like
in her defense. Yeah.
it's like everything that she brings up. It was a coincidence. It was a coincidence. It was a misunderstanding. It was a misunderstanding. He introduces different stuff from the countersuit perspective, but everything that he's trying to refute is like, that was a lot. That was a lot. That was a misunderstanding. That was a misunderstanding. That was a misunderstanding. It's like how probable is that you have this number of misunderstandings, this number of, you know, like we weren't on the same page kind of situations. That gives more credence, in my opinion, to her take on the.
I think I pretty much agree with that. Yeah, I think if someone takes a bunch of shit that you did and narrativizes it, which there is a machine in place to do, there are journalists that are looking to, like, that is what a journalist does. Even if they are looking to uncover truth, they do want to narrativize a series of things.
Yes,
you can kind of take any situation and have somebody in a wait, fuck, that's literally a series of coincidences that you like turn into a story. But even with that in mind, I think I'm still more leaning in your direction that, like, okay, a series of uncomfortable situations is like, okay, not that great of a defense. Yeah. I will say that one part of the story as a narrative that seems not crazy to me. So what I'm basically doing is going like, we don't have smoking guns. So I'm kind of going, do these stories at least internally make sense? I think Blake's makes sense. I think Justin makes sense to a lesser degree. So now it's a matter of seeing which facts match up to what. The part of Baldoni's story that, at least to me, kind of works is it feels similar to what I remember the director of American History X talking about with regard to Edward Norton, and how the lead actor started trying to use his star power to leverage unprecedented amount of power over the structure of a film. And it feels like Baldoni is alleging the same thing, that he is a director who got the rights to a film, partnered with a larger studio, which then brought in a slightly bigger star with a huge star as her partner, and they started steamrolling and undermining his role as the director and executive producer. And that is what began a series of uncomfortable shits. That, to me, at least seems like a plausible beginning to the fuck shit.
The only thing I will say, using that as an example, is that the stuff with Edward Norton being difficult to work with specifically for those things ultimately ended up being corroborated on other projects, right?
Corroboration is key. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, and a good example of that, and he ultimately
fired from Hulk for the same reason.
And he ultimately ends up poking fun of himself in what was the Birdman, because he's playing a character that is effectively Edward Norton that lost his star power because he was difficult to fucking work with. And and pushy and pushing things to the edge in terms of how he interacted with his co-stars and all those kind of things. So good example, I think, on both ends of those spectrum, because again, there was corroboration of how he was from other people.
Yeah, so now we just got to see this shit in court. I will say also the fact that it doesn't seem like the cast and crew and team are backing up Baldoni. Not that I'm seeing like little shakes and sprinkles of support for Blake. Most people seem to be kind of on the silent side, but Baldoni, I'm not seeing anybody going like, nah, Blake was crazy. It was wild on the set.
Look,
so
most people said, look,
yeah,
they took the Shannon Sharp approach and said that ain't got nothing to do with me.
pretty much. Well,
I mean, Shannon Sharp also just wasn't named in that suit, so it literally didn't have anything to do with him. That
part, I mean, exactly. They
were trying to bring it into it, like, fucking Jason Whitlock is the first person I saw from a media perspective to be like, you know who really won in this shit? Shannon Sharp. And then like Shannon responded to that, and then Whitlock replied to Shannon's response, basically saying that of the stuff that was happening at Fox while both of them were there, that Shannon Sharp was one of the people who was more likely to be flirtatious, more likely to push boundaries
relative to Skip.
Yeah, with female co-workers. He said Shannon Sharp was one of the people that was most likely to perpetuate that. But again, Shannon Sharp hasn't been named in any suit, and nobody's even come forward to insinuate that other than Jason Whitlock, since Jason Whitlock started down that path. Okay,
before we get into this one, because this will be our final topic, and we'll go deep into it. Josh, I think you had a little something to tell the people.
I absolutely do. God damn it, I absolutely do have something to tell the people.
Okay, talk to them.
You know what I mean? I just want to say to the good people out there, man, you know, if you have been rocking with us for a couple years now, and we started this thing during the pandemic, you know, it's 4 years strong, or 4 solid years.
Like many people did, but they're not around no more. We are.
Exactly. You know what I'm saying? We have withstood the test of time, and within that journey, within the parable of waving the red flag, we have built something called a community. Now, I'm not sure if everyone knows what a community is, but a community is a place where you can go and feel seen, feel heard, feel appreciated, develop and have conversations with like-minded people, and some people that you might have disagree with, but respectfully. And that's what we've done here at this play. You know what I'm saying? That's what we're continuing to strive for, continuing to do. So with that being said, if you fuck with us, if you appreciate us, and if you even just want to be like, man, fuck these niggas, but I like these niggas, I tune in every week, you know what I'm saying?
Respectfully, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Go ahead, man. You know what I'm saying? Go ahead, do us a favor, do yourself a solid. Sign up for the you know what I'm saying, what the that word
do a bloopers reel.
Completely just left my head.
Commonality.
Yeah, that part. But yeah, go ahead, do sign up, you know, to the Patreon, you know, become a community member, get access to the Discord link, get access to, you know, the lives that we do. If you're not able to make it here on Saturday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, if you are not able to make those, or if you find yourself being 5 minutes late, hey, baby.
It does happen.
You know what I'm saying? It happens, you know, it happens sometime, you know what I mean? If you got it, phenomenal. Go ahead and, you know, do us a favor, help our community and help our channel grow. And we'd love to have you. Just don't come in here on that bullshit, because we all try to be respectful. We all try to, you know, develop something that everybody has a safe space to communicate and, you know, build relationships with online. And yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, fuck with your boys, and thank you so much for your continued support and patronage. Even if that's just, you know, clicking like, commenting, and subscribing.
Big facts.
It's a red flag.